How is all my fellow Chibits doing today? I'm just, wanting to see how all of you are doing before I begin this review of World Trigger. So anyways, this episode of World Trigger, we get a lot of details explained, we find out more about side effect, and there's different setups going on in this episode. So let's dive in deep and let's talk about this episode of World Trigger. So, one thing that I noticed in this episode is they revealed side effects. Now, these side effects that were revealed in this episode, it was kind of actually revealed last week, but it wasn't really dived into. But in this week, we find out what side effects are, and for instance, to get a side effect, you have to come in contact with Treon, and if you get too much Treon around you, it messes with your sensory organs in your brain, and it causes you to get a side effect. Now, these side effects don't necessarily make you be able to breathe fire, freaking fly, be able to stretch like rubber, stuff like that. The Treon side effects do not cause that. It just causes you, I'm guessing, to have like a sixth sense. For instance, like you could see the future, you have foresight, great hearing as it was explained in this episode. So that's really cool. It definitely mixes up the overall abilities that most likely characters are going to have in the future of this series. Now, for one thing I will say is that this episode is pretty basic once again. It's a basic episode that sets up the overall factor with side effects and Osamu and Chika's overall relationship. Like, for instance, Chika, this female character that was technically finally introduced with this episode, she supposedly attracts neighbors towards her. For instance, every time there's like a neighbor coming through a gate, she instantly senses it before even the alarms detect it. Before the alarms go off and border detects it and all that type of stuff, she actually was able to sense the neighbor beforehand. We got an actual glimpse of this in this episode, and so this makes me think of a couple things. For side effects to be introduced in this episode, okay? They were introduced at the beginning part of this episode or last episode, whatever you want to, say they were introduced. It makes me think that maybe Chika has some form of side effect. That's all I want to say. Maybe her side effect she can detect when gates open or something with Treon gates opening up, and maybe the reason why she probably has massive Treon, or I don't know, maybe it's because of her, side effect, it attracts neighbors towards her. That could be the possibility. I don't know. But besides that, we also got a little bit of, like, crazy things going on this episode. For instance, we find out that Jin, he has been through the gate multiple times. Not once, but multiple times to the neighbor's world. And he's seen human neighbors, and he said that he knows some neighbors are not all bad. Like, he said that there's good neighbors and there's bad neighbors. So, very interesting how Jin is a lot different from the other border agents we have thus far seen. I mean, like last week, at the ending part of the last week's episode, there was that border agent or whatever that was going to hunt down Kuga and try to kill him. And so, it's interesting. I mean, if Jin knows that there's good neighbors, that must mean the higher-ups must know there's good neighbors. For instance, the dude that wanted to kill, like, a humanoid neighbor, Kuga. So, yeah, a major question has just been brought up. I mean, why is that person wanting to kill neighbors, and if he knows there's possibly good neighbors? Now, besides that, the animation. I actually want to get into that first before I continue on. Let's be real here. None of us can deny it. I said it last week, and I'll say it again. It's Toei Animation. And clearly, ever since the first episode, we can all admit the animation budget has not been the best when it comes to this series. For the most part, the animation in this episode was okay. Nothing too special. But I noticed a lot of still frames. Did anyone else notice all those still frames that Toei Animation used in the first half of this episode when you saw the cleanup with all the neighbor, like the little spider neighbors things that were causing the abnormal gates to open? All of those still frames. Holy shit. Like, there was at least 10 still frames, one after another. I'm like, Toei, holy shit, like, oh my god, just like, oof. But besides that, the animation held up for the most part. I mean, the fight, it looked okay, but it wasn't that fluid, it was okay. But, I mean, really, I'm watching the series for the plot, honestly, I am. I've seen a lot worse when it comes to animation and CGI and shit, so I can look past Toei Animation's animation, really I can. It just, I wanted to mention that if nobody else actually noticed that. But anyways, this episode had some good music, it had some good development, good setup with Chika, Osamu, and Kuga. It was priceless seeing that Kuga moment where he was trying to ride the bicycle. Oh my god, that was funny. That was fucking funny. He was trying to ride the bike and he kept falling over and all that, and when he freaking ran into the water, oh, priceless. That was really, really priceless. But that pretty much is what happened in this week's episode, really. That's pretty much what happened. So yeah, it's a decent episode. It's average. I would give it maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10. I mean, that's not bad. It's just an average episode. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.